Well, welcome everyone. Let's get started. So I have the pleasure to introduce Andrew to you all. Many of you know him because you work with him, but some of you don't know him. He's going to be kind of our subject matter expert to share what they've been doing over at Sand to do some really cool things around standardized work and making sure that work instructions are close to point of use and easy to use. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. So Andrew, why don't you introduce yourself, what you do at Sand, and then we'll kind of get into things.
Thanks, Tucker. Super happy to be here, excited to be able to share some of what we're doing here. My name is Andrew Bisceglia, good Irish name. And basically, I'm the plant manager here. What do? I drink a lot of coffee, I can tell you that. Yeah, it just, focus on operations and streamlining the business here and developing it wherever we can.
Awesome. And Andrew, if we were to catch you not at Sand, what are some hobbies that you enjoy? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a pilot, so I enjoy flying. I have an airplane, like motorcycles, so fast things with things that are probably not so good for the environment. But yeah, those are my kind of two things.
Wow, that's cool. I didn't know that. That sounds terrifying, but really cool at the same time. Well, if you ever come out to Seattle, there's a lot of airplane paraphernalia around here, as you're probably well aware. So, really cool. Let's what we're gonna do for in terms of format, as I'm gonna kind of interview Andrew to kind of pull out kind of the basics of what they've been working on over at Sand, and then we'll open up for open questions. At any time, you can comment in the chat, and then your question might be so good that we might just put it in to the program, or we'll wait till it opens up. But first question I have for you, Andrew, is what problem were you trying to solve when, what kind of tell us about the origin of what you were kind of working on to make you kind of have this idea to create SaandView, as you call it?
So when I first arrived, basically I was looking for some standard work around our processes, just to understand what it is that we're supposed to be doing on this equipment. I'm new to glass relatively, but I'm not new to production and processes. So my background is continuous improvement, and so I'm always searching for that standard work, so that everybody's doing everything the same way, because as you know, variation is the killer of productivity, of all those types of things, profit, safety. So that was the impetus for me was, let's try to get standard work. So what do we have in existence today?
Really cool. So, and then I guess kind of a second question related to that is, how did you know it was a problem? So how did you know, what was there, high defect rates, or was there someone, not knowing how to do something? So what were paint us the picture of what kind of was going on that caused you to think we can't do it like this anymore?
It's all those things that some of them are intuitive and some of them are not so intuitive, but certainly we had a defect rate that we're still fighting right now, and that's a long process. In culture change, that's another thing that so from shift to shift, department to department, employee to employee, I could see that there was a gap in how we do things. And just I'll put a plug in for Gemba, and walking around. I'm a strong believer of management by walking around. So when you go and you talk to people, and you're asking the same questions to different people and getting different answers, then there's clearly variation in how we're doing the business. So that's what started leading me down the path of, okay, so the first thing, and even I might make the point here, and it's not the primary point, but if you're trying to be consistent across shifts and departments, and someone's not doing what you're expecting them to do, then the first question you have to ask is, well, were you trained? That's the first question. You don't start beating people with sticks. You ask, do you understand what the requirement is? And that question led to different answers too. So it starts to kind of point you in the direction of standard work.
Yeah, really good. Yeah, there's an article that I'll post in the chat in a moment once I kind of dig it up and find it, that Mark Rosenthal wrote a little bit ago. It's called like the 6 troubleshooting questions, and it's basically questions to ask when you run into a problem like variation or something's not meeting quality standard or something like that. And the first question is it clear have you made it clear what good looks like? So before we say this looks bad, we have to say what would look good. And then the second question is, do we have a standard method to get us there? And if the answer is no, well, we need a standard method to get us there. So what I like about the 6 questions is you basically answer it yes, no, and you get to your first no, and then that tells you kind of what to do. And so what it sounds like is you had some variation in outcomes, so you had to define what good looked like, and then you also had to define kind of like how to follow the process, how to do it. So really neat. Okay, last question before we get to do some screen sharing action to see what you guys have now. What was your first draft like? So like what you're going to show us today, I asked this question because what you're going to show us today is I've seen it. It's pretty robust and a little complicated in the sense that it has IT. IT helped out with it, so it's not just like something really simple that someone could just roll with now. So what were the first drafts like? What did you guys start with?
I always try to start from the perspective of the KISS principle, and try to make it as simple as possible. Some of my background was aerospace and automotive, and those things were very visual. And I had some good lessons with some Japanese customers in excuse me, in past lives, where you had to create work instructions. And I did, like a lot of people, initially you create a sacred chalice of knowledge, and it goes on a shelf somewhere and starts to collect dust. And I was quite proud of that. And when you came to show and tell with some of the Japanese entourage, they didn't have any time for it at all, didn't want to see it even, and that was shocking to me. But it really drove home, because I mean, in those types of scenarios, it's very super visual, footprints to the machine. And basically the impetus for me was, can you bring grandma and grandpa to the facility and give them some information and let them run the equipment or do the task? If it could be that simple, or if I can understand it, then anybody can understand it. So that was kind of what I was after. And so what we started to do is I started to draw all the information that already existed in the facility and in our other facilities, to try to understand what's available today. And thankfully we had a new quality tech join us, and he'll be doing some of the presentation this morning, sharing that, and that's Nathanael Postma. And he's also very techy, so I drew upon his expertise, and we said, hey, listen, let's try to do something that is right at the cell, where people that are using it can get to it and not have to go somewhere else and look for something and fire through a bunch of volumes of information, right? So that's kind of how it started.
I love it. That is awesome. Is there anything else we should know before you do some screen sharing and show us what you guys have now?
Just that it's a work in process. It's an evolution, and so what you will see is not a finished product. I don't believe that it's ever a finished product, and I don't believe standard work is something that is set in stone and immovable. If we find things, and we saw that with you guys, walking through your plant tours, and it's something that's reviewed and should be utilized, and then if it's not quite right, change it. and make it reflect.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people work hard for their quality system, and that's the wrong approach. The quality system should work hard for you, not the other way around. And sometimes we tend, especially if it's a third-party audit scenario, people have to have all their I's dotted and their T's crossed and make sure that it all makes sense, but it's not really what they do, but it satisfies an auditor, and that's just a waste of time. So
Yeah, I love. You said you've been saying a lot of really good gold. I hope you know that. It's been like that is my biggest pet peeve. Two big pet peeves that you just kind of mentioned. One, when we don't think of continuous improvement as continuous, it's just an improvement, and then we kind of settle, and it doesn't stay alive. And we all know that that's it might sound nice, but it's not reality because things change. We learn new ways of doing things. And then the second thing is, I'm our audit manager for our third-party audited certification for aerospace. And when I inherited that position, it was very complicated, very complex. We worked really hard for it. And a lot of the improvements that I've made as audit manager have been to do exactly that. Make sure that the quality management system helps us and works for us, and that might be getting creative or figuring out ways to remove for that.
So this is the front page of this this platform, and as you can see, everybody has access to this. So it was important for us, and I'm super proud that the other sites took this on as well, and saw value in it, because what it does is it allows us to jump into any one of our divisions for best in class, for any information. So, how are we doing it at Brockport? We can go in there and we can see. So what we're shooting for here, as I said, was something that's kind of intuitive and easy to navigate. So when I click on Sand London, this is the home page here, and basically that's our facility, and this is the layout of our plant. And so what we wanted to enable is an operator working in any one of these areas is able to go into their specific area and understand what's going on in that. So I'll use this as an example, our Lysic line. Basically, this is a line where we assemble units of glass to make them into windows that are they have argon gas in them, and so this is a production line. So if I click on Lysic, it goes to the next layer, which will show us the dual seal, the load area, the stacking area, corking, and offload. So let's say I'm an operator working in the load area. I click on here, and this is typically what you'll see in all of them, and we'll get Nat to share some as well with some other areas. So in this area, you can see here we've got preventative maintenance, we've got quality documents, we have reference documents, and then we can put, I mean, this thing here, and I'll let Nat explain it in more detail, but you can construct this in any way you want, and you can have the documents sit wherever you want them. So if I just click on here, I'm going to go do a preventative maintenance, for instance. I'm an operator, I'm new in the area. I've got my orientation training, and it tells me I need lockout tagout. So I go there, and this is specific to the IG washer, and it shows me what I need to do specifically for that piece of equipment. So that's that's a lockout tagout. Now, if I want to know what the preventative maintenance is on this, well, I just click on that, and I say, okay, well, preventative Lysic load. This is my area here. There's my checklist. So on this, you can see this checklist shows you it's got symbology, so it can show you exactly what needs to be done, and then what the key is, that the symbol that you're looking for. So when you go to page 2, it shows you actually where exactly to do that maintenance on the piece of equipment. And so we do that, and it allows you to make notations and so on and so forth as well, and for our records. but having that is great. But we tie it into this. So when you go to the actual machine, you see, okay, well, there's the symbology that tells me what I'm supposed to be doing on the piece of equipment itself. So everything is kind of tied in back to that, so that you're able to do your work. Included in that is reference documents. So if there's reference documents, we put them in here. And so you can see exactly. So here's how we do our pH testing. So all that information is right there handy. So every machine that exists here, you know, has a kiosk. And you can see the kiosk here. So this is the loading station. The picture is actually attached to where the operator is. So again, they look at their layout, then they click onto there and they go, oh, this is where I work. Yeah, I know this station. And here's the station, here's the screen, and this is what would show on that screen. So everything is compact and at a finger's touch. I'll hand it off to Nat as well, if you want to continue, Nat.
So from my end, and maybe to help you guys kind of understand our journey in this, maybe I'll put my perspective on from where Andrew had. So I joined Sand in 2021, and right away, one of my first things that Andrew, had seen and as a need is to this lack of standard work. We saw, in competencies, we saw it in, losing old knowledge with turnover and whatnot. And, and we saw a lot of gaps that way. So one of the first tasks Andy gave me was to just, what do we have? What do we have? And so I went through our network, I went through the facility, going through paper documents, binders attached to walls, you name it. Right. And just made this huge inventory of, and of course, with all of that, you've got document control issues with revisions and all this stuff. So we, very quickly, but it's really hard to know what you don't know. Right. Is this everything? Have I found it all? I don't know. And so that became a very big challenge. And again, the Gemba walks was key in this, right? As we were doing these walks, and it was a new experience for me in my past life, different areas in the industry, manufacturing looks very different. And so here, very much there's like Andrew was saying, there's pretty well at every operator station, there's a computer screen just tied in with how the process works here. And so very quickly, why are we not utilizing these screens? Why, yes, it serves a purpose. It mirrors our process. It allows, our process to scan points and all these things, but it's capable of so much more. And so that was kind of a light bulb moment for us on Gemba. So when we kind of got to a point where I'd say maybe got 98% of what I thought existed, we said, well, revision control, like, oh man, like, wouldn't it be so simple if this was just digital? Wouldn't it be, I do one revision, I don't have to go out on the floor and change 5, there's general standard work that applies to the whole floor, it may be posted in 10 spots. And revision control and all that. Wouldn't it be nice if this was just digital? So I don't know who's techie among the groups. Who remembers GeoCities? Remember GeoCities from the 90s? HTML. Anyone have a web page? Right. So that's going back to the mid to late 90s. I think I was maybe senior high school or just graduated, and internet 1.0, everybody had a web page back then. It seemed like if you were a teen or a 20, it was just the cool thing to do. So I had dabbled in the past with HTML. So that was kind of the light bulb. It's not something I do now, although now we do, but it just kind of appealed. Wouldn't it be so simple to just have an HTML page and, make it graphical? And I think the other thing I've learned past life is, and maybe a pet peeve as well as being a quality guy. You tend to be a mediator for this stuff. People on the floor, hey, Nat, where do I find this? Over and over and over. Well, you don't need me in the middle. Why can't you access this? And we found a lot, whether it was ISO or not ISO, documents were always stored by, classification or by the perspective of office, really, the people who are making the, not necessarily the worker. And so it became very hard from the worker's perspective to find this stuff, even if they had network access or whatnot, right? And so that was kind of the light bulb was what the people who need this, it should be available to them in their perspective. This is where I live. This is what I do. Of course we have a work instruction folder and there's a pile of work instructions in it, but who wants, right? And the way you name that, yeah, okay, you can make it easier to find, but it's not really intuitive. And so developing this, making it visual, was kind of the big light bulb moment, right? And there's growing pains, right? You start, like you said, revision 1, you learn a lot, right? So, and I think what we're seeing today here is kind of the end of revision 1. We're kind of outgrowing this layout where if you look at some of this, we come over to tempering, it's getting really busy. And so there's down the road where I'm already kind of working towards getting a better layout. It shows you, great, it's visual, it's the tempering line, but we're quickly running out of space here. I was relying on color court. So our standard our work instructions would be these orange buttons. And, had some other categories where if I go to what's shaping up to be our 2.0 here, let's see here, it's going to say same layout, but if I come in now, I have a standardized layout for sections. So it's an extra link maybe to go over to work instructions, but it's allowing me for expansion. Because the more this grows, the more that we go on this journey, we're realizing, hey, why don't we incorporate health and safety aspects into this, right? Initially, lockout tagout was a more recent one that we've implemented. But we just, as we go on, there's just, it started out as work instruction. Well, now we're, there's so much, there's sign-off sheets and safety checks and all these things that the operators need access to. And they're once again going to a supervisor when they could be really, so this is growing all the time, what we see the potential for.
So Nat,
yeah,
maybe speak a little bit about how the files are maintained.
Yeah.
And
So,
how the structure.
so this really is just a visual representation of a file folder when it comes down to it. So if I go back to where I was here, here's my new SaandView kind of in the works. And basically all those sections on the floor that you see, it's just a folder. And just, kind of ISO, if you go inside, they're all laid out the same. So we've got forms, PMs, quality, reference, right? It's the same, it's mirroring what you see visually. So that's basically the structure of it. And then the web, if I go up to the top level, this is the whole web page hanging out here. So you basically, the way to the question asked, how this works, basically all you're seeing in SaandView is an image. And so I've actually drawn this up, believe it or not, in the Paint program on Windows. So Paint 3D.
No way.
Yeah, this is Paint 3. Awesome. So on our network, someone years ago, in years past, had done a CAD drawing, and there was a BMP, a bitmap file of our layout. And I thought, hey, well, that's great. Let's steal it, right? They say great artists steal. Is that what? So, some layover, but this is just an image. So you see, it's very much, there's a border here. And so all you're seeing here is an image. When I go back, there's the whole structure of SaandView is there's an image, and then there's an HTML file that's paired with that image that creates hotspots on it. And that's all there is. So that hotspot may take you to another page, or that hotspot may take you to an actual, and this is really exploiting the capability of a web browser with, they become so multi-use now. This is just PDFs. Most web browsers will read a PDF, right? So it's paired with a lot of our source data that it's accessing. It's just PDFs. If I come down into here, if I go into, say, our tempering and reference documents, you're just going to see PDF files for the most part. And so it's really exploiting, it's keeping it really simple. creating, and once again, there's an online tool that just generates the HTML for me. I don't even have to do that. So there's basically allows you to upload an image, draw a hotspot on it, and type in a link, and you hit go. And so once I have an initial, it will generate an initial HTML file that's paired with an image. Down the road, maybe I just splice in one line of code to add a link into that image. But that's basically, it's just really simple. I don't want to, you know, you don't want to have to people building web pages and all the crazy, you know, amount of time that goes into it. It's really try to keep it as simple as possible.
So Nat,
yeah.
maybe speak a little bit also to document data and control, because that's obviously a concern when it comes to, especially if you're an ISO organization where
Yeah.
you need to keep strict control over your documentation.
Yeah. So we kind of touched on that, right? Like it's instead of having loose paper on the floor, right? We update one file here, and that's across the board. We're covered. Right. So I have obviously a master copy on our network, and this becomes a mirror of that. But otherwise it keeps things pretty simple. You know, you do a revision. It may be a case of going in to update this. You know, I've updated a work instruction, say in tempering. Maybe I have to go into the code and just change a revision number from 13 to 14 or something in the file name, and replace that PDF. But basically, you know, first keeping tabs on revision, it's pretty straightforward, right? There's only one copy basically. So you know, there's a backup, and then there's the actual working copy that powers SaandView. So
and what about security?
Yeah, so
for the
likewise, so this is hosted initially when we were piloting this. We hosted it just on a thumb drive. Right, just plugged it in the USB port, and just to see, you know, go out there and see if it would work, right? And to kind of, if we were going to implement this, you know, obviously, you know, you had to get IT involved and to actually make this available on the network. But it's all locally hosted, so this isn't something. There's not a web page. If I come up to, I can't see it because there's buttons on the top of my screen. You'll see that it's locally hosted. This is the new that I haven't implemented yet. It's right on the C drive, basically, of my computer. But on the regular here, we've actually allocated a spot on our network. IT has mapped us a specialized spot. So this is all locally hosted files. There has been other stuff with this, some other really useful things that we've been able to plug in that aren't locally hosted, but it's not data that we're really worried about. We're talking like, so one opportunity we saw was exploiting, I don't know if exploiting is the right word, but using, I don't know if anyone's used Google Docs or Google Forms before. So we're trying to keep on top of our lot numbers of incoming materials, you know, that we want to track for warranty reasons and whatnot. So when we're loading glass and stuff, we've basically started using Google Forms. So you can come in and choose a drawer where they're loading glass. And we've actually hooked this up. So we went on Amazon and just got a USB barcode scanner. So if they're getting a lot number right off of an incoming, they can scan that. So there's no data entry issues. Even their names, I've made barcodes for. It's just I want to make their life easy. I don't want to make it onerous to be able to do this. So they have a barcode right out on the line. They can scan their name, click the box, scan their names. So it's a barcode for the product that they're doing, and all the various numbers that go along with that. So when they submit that in the Google form, it goes over to our other side here, and we can actually look at the inventory. So we get a long running list of there we go, of all of our supplier info, and so it's also timestamped, so we can actually track product being used. We can go back and say what day, you know, on that, what day, what lot number were they using it. So this isn't hosted locally. This is through Google, but it's not necessarily anything critical. I don't know, you know, security wise, any critical information other than a lot number.
Yeah,
It's
simple
just been
tool.
opportunity.
Yeah, a simple tool and super important for us.
Yeah.
You know, especially when we're talking about glass inventory, this is a great tool for the guys back there that are responsible for keeping this organized. And if there are any quality issues, it's an easy find for us. So
Yeah.
super good.
So, and we've realized the training opportunity, right? This is going back to that problem we had. You don't know what you have if you don't know what you have. So this is really nice because it pools everything. If I live in tempering, this is everything we have. You don't have to wonder if am I missing something posted in the binder here? Did it go missing? Did it wander away? Right. So for training purposes, when you're really immersing a new employee and bringing them up to speed, you know, they have full opportunity here to go through and reference what they need to. So
Yeah, I'll speak to that a little bit. Like with I love certain aspects of our version of this with our QR codes and you know iPads that people can scan. But one of the downsides that we found is that we are still in that stage of we don't know what we have and what the breadth is, and it is in one folder, or on the boards that pull from that folder, and so it's really hard to know. Like I've watched all of the standard work in this area or this process because who knows what other relics might be there. So we didn't have the foresight to have architecture, I guess is my point. Whereas you guys kind of, as you were building in the scaffolding and the architecture to support it. Whereas it was kind of like, all right, let's stick some videos. And there's some benefits to that because it happened pretty fast. But I like that you guys took the time to design the usability of it and this to help you scale. So really neat. I think that's probably a good amount of the show and tell aspect, and we can kind of open it up for questions. I see that Lori's question was pretty much answered with accessing the documents from computers at each station. So what other questions do y'all have?
I have another one. So Nathanael, are you the only one that can actually make changes to the master form? So say like in different facilities, if I have a change to standard work, how does that process? Does it all funnel through you or your group, or would I have access to go in and change?
Yeah.
Standard
So the way initially, yes, because it kind of I pioneered that, right? I kind of we kind of came up with this as we went, right? But in months past, as we rolled it out to the other facilities, obviously that's you know, we're smaller in London and there's not that many revisions where it was too onerous on just me. But now that it's available at the other locations, I was able to do quick demo and training videos. We basically did Zoom calls and recorded and showed how to edit and whatnot. So there are champions basically at each location. So of course I'm a support for training and whatnot for them. But so yeah, each location has a champion. Initially it was around the process engineers, but I think quality has kind of owned that to a certain degree now. So
yeah, I had a question. Yeah, just kind of I heard you talking at the beginning, Andrew, about kind of speeding up training, and that this was a way of making sure that new people that you hire can access the information they need. Have you done any studies or kind of looked at anything related to how quickly new people are, you sign them off on the machines or anything like that? Because I'm really interested to understand how this could speed up onboarding new people.
Yeah, it's a fantastic question, and the short answer is no. We've just kind of organically grown this and evolved it. But it's a super good point, Mark, that really we should be circling back. I think that, the reason we don't is we didn't start, we never had that measure. And I think it's something that a lot of companies and businesses fall down on, is like understanding the onboarding process better, so that especially in a high exertion type of facility where work hardening is definitely something that is a factor. So no, that's something we should be looking at is, what's the time frame and how quickly do we get our folks up to speed? I think it's been less of an issue for us now for a couple reasons. The main one is that we used to hire on in the busy season temp folks. And this is where we really saw an impact, because you got folks that really aren't engaged because they know they're not going to be here for any long period of time. And so, we kind of give them a quick, here's how you do it, and away you go. And depending on what shift you're on, that training can be different. And it wasn't measured. Now, our philosophy has changed, where we bring people on, they're part of the family, they stay with us, and the training is much more in depth. No, but that's something that we should be looking at.
Yeah, thank you.
What other questions do you all have? I have one more. What, for anyone that is watching this either live or on the recording later, like, is there any word of advice if they're like, okay, we got to have something like this? Obviously, with any of our tools for COS or other organizations, don't just try to copy it, because it'll probably break, but for your organization. But there are some elements here that I'm sure are maybe desirable in your head. And so what would be a good advice for someone that's like about to start on this journey? What would be like a good first step or advice for them, either of you?
Me, I think that a key function is always including the people that are doing the work. That's like fundamental. I kind of feel silly saying it, but over and over and over, I see that work instructions are created in a vacuum, and then they're basically given to the person that's doing it. And part of the reason why they end up on a shelf somewhere. So whatever system you use, whatever platform you use, whether it's hieroglyphics or whether it's something more advanced, right at ground level, include the folks that are actually doing that job, so that they own it, they have the input. And a reality of it is, sometimes we have to discipline because things go sideways and someone's not following procedures. And if they had a part of creating it, then they first of all tend to use it, and secondly, there's no excuses at the end of the day.
Brings the honesty into to the work too, right? This is, having that divide between what the work instruct. Oh, and in reality, this is really we need clear work. That's exactly what we do. Every quirk of that silly old machine or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, that's really good. It might sound silly, Andrew, to mention that, but I also don't think you over-index on that, because it's a good reminder for all of us, especially those of us who have maybe a vision and like to work independently a little bit and autonomously. I'm speaking about myself. It is easy to like forget, oh, it's about the user. And I didn't, just full disclosure, I tried to learn as little about this as possible, basically just enough to know we should have an event on this, so that I could actually not know what to ask and actually learn with you all. But one thing I didn't know I was going to learn, it was not an expectation I was going to learn, was like the collaboration aspect and the going to the Gemba and working with the team to kind of build this around the user, which is really cool, because I think most quality systems, actually I know that because I know a lot of people that run quality management systems. It's almost always the audit manager or quality person that like basically creates it in their own echo chamber and it works for them, and that's kind of where it ends oftentimes. So it's a good reminder to like whatever we're working on, involving the people at the right time, not for like groupthink where it's what do we want to do and like make have input on everything, but especially when we get down to the usability, make sure the customer's involved. Yeah, really neat. Love it.
Because in years past in ISO, especially in automotive, we purposely created work instructions that were vague so that, you know, we could pass the audit. And it was just insanity, but so we've learned.
No, and that's been my perspective too in coming here was you know, my quality journey. I was 10 years on the front lines on the floor in manufacturing before I went into quality. And you'd witness that over and over again where decisions were made in a vacuum. And you'd watch the guys, the old guys who'd been there since, but they built the building around them, and kind of scoff and say, well, this is going to fail for X, Y, and Z. And sure enough, right. And that became the wisdom that I kind of gleaned there was, absolutely. You go to the guys in the know for sure.
Yeah, really cool. Well, with that, we'll put a bow on this episode. And thank you so much, Andrew and Nat, for joining us and sharing what you've been learning. It impacted me on a personal level, so thank you. I put into the chat a link because you guys kept mentioning Gemba. We have our next Q&R next month on the 22nd of February. We're going to be showing our Gemba walk, which is our way of having managers show face on the shop floor, looking for variability, looking for problems, be able to interact with the team, celebrate anniversaries, fun things like that too. So hope you can join us there. And until next time, thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Take care.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye.